A pleasure to me all at last. And now, we're at it with films I should have talked about years ago. Basically, whatever else I can pretty much put together. I'll admit, I've practically marathoned a few different films, sometimes many of them a day, and I get it. I probably will be needing a break from all this, but with all the other work I've had to put together here, I mean, I got HJN episodes, I got GWK, and I also got T-Rex documentaries. So, the whole rest of this month is just as busy as when it comes to most of my work outside of YouTube and whatnot. So, what more can I tell you about that? Anyways, though, for my next pick of films I should have talked about years ago, this is one that I feel like I've been really holding back for a while. And it is, of course, a John Carpenter film. Yeah, some might realize The Thing is something I could have, in fact, talked about a while ago. And I'm not just talking about when I first started this series. I'm talking about way before then. Yeah. Like maybe in the 2000s. Well, then again, this was an R-rated film. 1982. Kind of at the height in which that practical effects was at its best. And John Carpenter was among the many people out there that were able to put it all together. But we know that it wasn't entirely his doing that made this film such a unique piece of mind. While some might not think of The Thing as a masterpiece, after 43 years, many of them still think that it holds up. With effects that can hold up today, though, some might debate about it every which way. And some might look at it in totally different directions. But we're here to talk about The Thing, and that's probably that. So, it goes something like this. The film starts off with a helicopter in the likes of Antarctica in 1982. Kind of unique that we have ourselves the present day time. And there's guys shooting at a dog. Yeah, can you believe that? Who would shoot at a cute husky jumping through the snow and running through the entirety of Antarctica? Who would do that? Well, when the dog finds a safe haven at a certain US research base, these guys that get out of the helicopter are unfortunately speaking a foreign language to them and start shooting at the dog as well as the occupants of this facility. They are easily taken down, but of course they can't exactly understand why this poor dog was being maimed like that. In any case, though, while they do head back inside, and with a few other activities that highlight, including a chess computer, yeah, and one of the guys, played by Kurt Russell, he ends up putting his drink in the computer's processor, thinking that she's cheating. Classic. Well, in any case, though, the dog is brought into the kennel, and what the other dogs inside don't realize is that this dog is very different. Not just because of the way it behaves, but because of the way that, believe it or not, it turns into a grueling monster. Flailing tentacles, horrifying screeching noises, amongst many other things. It's a massive, bloody, pulpy mess, for the most part. But that's probably part of the sheer beauty of what they could accomplish with the practical effects they had at the time. Meanwhile, one can make incredibly gory, hyper-realistic effects today, and it would really scare people. Well, the thing is, though, this creature does attack the dogs, scalp them, chew them up, until guys come by armed with shotguns and flamethrowers. And while they're able to torch that thing to a crisp, as The Thing is technically considered to be what this thing is referred to as, it becomes abundantly clear later on in the film that as they bring it in for some study, one of the head doctors of this facility unfortunately comes across something shocking. This thing becomes a microscopic disease that is rather contagious and spreads to anybody who makes contact with it. Not entirely just physical contact, but the point is that there is essentially what's like a killer virus inside the facility. And anybody whom has in fact had contact with the creature at some point is very likely going to be one of them. You see, the thing has a microscopic sort of presence for the most part. And with a molecular structural buildup that happens over time, it essentially becomes a unique, flaccid, terrifying organism that dwells the earth. The guys all fear that the thing might end up consuming all of them, turning them into them. Things beyond their wildest imaginations. But even worse, the potential for this supposed epidemic to spread across the world beyond their home base in Antarctica. It could be the Norwegian base that's some distance away. Those same guys that were shooting at that dog earlier. Or it could be elsewhere, across the Atlantic to South America, or possibly elsewhere. So what they have to do, they have to put themselves through blood tests. A number of different searches and stuff take place just as well, and many of our characters, with some having more unique personalities than others, they all get tested for blood. But the Kurt Russell guy, he's the man armed with the flamethrower, and he even usurps leadership of the group. The rest of the survivors are just there at his mercy, since he's the guy with a torch in his hands. And should anybody cross paths with him or do anything wrong, he will torch him to a crisp. Now that's so definitely Kurt Russell. Knowing that he was just fresh off of his success from Escape from New York, which came out the year prior in '81, his performance in The Thing is quite astounding. I mean, this is a man with leadership, potential, and all that stuff that you could possibly think of. Oh, but think about it, he would get even bigger in later years. Throughout the 80s and 90s, he especially was a sensation beyond our wildest dreams when it came to acting at that time. Well, in any case though, when testing comes around, everybody's blood samples are picked off, and let me tell you, the way that they use their scalpels and just slit their thumbs open, squeezing the drops out, it's rather painful to watch. It's almost like they actually took a scalpel and sliced their thumbs open just for the blood test. That's got to take a lot of guts to do it, because it's just really painful to look at, even today. Well, it turns out that while most of the blood samples are clean by Kurt Russell utilizing the likes of a wire that he heats up with the flamethrower and then dipping it into the blood, he would expect it to curdle and act sort of like a alien organism. Well, most of the samples are clean, even one whom had been killed earlier. So essentially, it makes him a murderer, according to some of the guys there. And knowing that R.J. MacReady has had himself a reputation already by this point, you would expect him to get a little bit of mercy. But apparently not, because once he commits a test on another blood sample, boom, the blood is alive. It's literally The Thing in blood form. That's actually what's unique about this film too. Kind of like with Ridley Scott's Alien, which came out a few years earlier. The Thing doesn't truly have its own definitive form. In Ridley Scott's Alien, we see a number of things that happen. A facehugger latches onto someone's head, implants an egg, the chest burster comes out and runs free among the ship, the Nostromo, and when it finally grows up and reveals its true form, it's a massive, hostile xenomorph. Meanwhile, John Carpenter's The Thing, we have a totally different thing going on. I mean, The Thing first took the form of a dog, transformed into its true self, but was then burned to a crisp, and then essence of that particular creature ended up in the bodies of the survivors inside the research station, infecting them one by one, turning them into things in their own unique way. And let me tell you, one of them especially is brutal, because when the blood test is complete and the blood is found out to belong to another one of the guys there, well, that's pretty much it. That's all you need to know, pretty much. Because chaos continues from that point on. And it seems that R.J. MacReady is going to be the sole survivor of the group. It's a really nerve-wracking, intense experience beyond all comprehension. Who is going to make it out of there alive without getting infected by the thing, and more importantly, not becoming one of them? Or worse, getting killed before they even have a chance to fight? Well, it does seem that they are trying to look for the source of where the thing originally came from. They realized that it was not just because of the dog that they had found earlier. Those guys that were warning them earlier, Norwegians, they of course didn't understand it because they were talking their own native language. But more importantly is the fact that the dog probably wasn't the only variation of this life form that had apparently been discovered, because the Norwegians planted tannerite explosives, revealing some sort of massive crater beneath, and essentially like some sort of sacred ancient tomb that must have been there for millennia. Well, in any case though, what we do get to see is an impressive climax. Because when RJ MacReady, as well as the rest of the guys are out there, they're going underground for the most part to look for this source, especially noting that they had gotten a hold of video evidence about the Norwegians discovering it earlier. So they figure that if they go to that exact same spot, they'll be able to find where this thing came from, and if there's any more, they can terminate with explosive devices. Well, it does seem their fears are justified. You have massive creatures down there that are unbelievable, and the effects just continue to get even more crazy. But when it's all said and done, RJ MacReady is the man whom comes out barely walking and barely alive. But he's done it. He saved Antarctica and probably the whole rest of the world from a horrifying alien species. John Carpenter's The Thing had a unique soundtrack to it, had a unique cast to it, especially with the likes of Kurt Russell and Keith David and many others along the way. But I feel like what really solidifies this though are the effects. I mean, we're not just talking about the dog or the people who were infected, but we're talking about many other things as well. It's also important to note that The Thing wasn't exactly an original film. This was actually a remake of The Thing from Another World, which also takes place in Antarctica. Snow and ice is all around, and there's an alien species that somehow comes alive after so many years of being in a frozen sleep. Kind of the same sort of deal here. John Carpenter essentially took an old film and practically had perfected it. And if that's not enough, in 2011 there actually came along a prequel, also titled The Thing. I really feel like it should be called The Thing, The Beginning, or The Beginning of The Thing. Something along those lines would work. There was also a video game on the PS2, but eventually was remastered for the PS5. Both variations are pretty awesome. I do like what they were able to accomplish with the remaster though, by upping the resolution and frame rate, so that way our PS5s can greatly handle a game that is now 23 years old. Yeah, just a few years behind me, of course. Well, in that sense, that's pretty much all I got to offer for John Carpenter's The Thing. I especially love what they did with this, and I'm sure any of you guys out there can give this film a watch, because now that it's free on YouTube, what could you possibly lose, or what could you possibly wish for not to see it? So for my final scoring of John Carpenter's The Thing, it's got to be a good one. An 8.8 out of 10.1. And while there's many other films like this that I could talk about, we'll probably stick to other things worth talking about relating to film. Because from here on out, we can expect plenty more worth covering